Welcome to Calvin, the Digital Creative School. Mode. Hello, welcome everyone. It's been a while since our last Blender beginner course. So yeah, a few things have changed. Blender got a bunch of new cool features, as always, but the basics are still the same. So if you've seen my last beginner courses, there might be not so many new things in this one, but still you can, in the second part, in the second hour, you can ask questions and I can answer them for you interactively. So yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna switch over here to the Blender website to begin with. Let's go desktop scene. All right. So if you guys can't hear or see anything so well, let me know. Then I can change things, but it looks to me like everything's working so far. Yeah, everything should be working. All right, so let's start with Blender, the Blender website, and a little bit about what Blender even is. So Blender is a 3D program. It's open source. It's free to use. You can make your own version even, and I've seen that also in the past. Like you can make your own Blender version and also sell it as its own product if you like, but it still needs to be open source. So yeah, Blender is a very open platform. Like anybody can contribute and use it for whatever they want to. It has like a huge feature list. When you go on the website here on blender.org, you can see everything you can do, like rendering photorealistic words and images, modeling, all kinds of things, sculpting, animation and rigging characters. Story artist is interesting. That's a new thing, but I think it mainly means like the 2D artworks. Like you can have a lot of, or there are a lot of 2D drawing tools in Blender now. So you can basically create 2D animated movies, which is very cool. Visual effects, so you can like composite live action footage and stuff like that. Simulation, like fire, water, and physics, like rigid bodies. Pipeline, I guess, is about like formats, so you can like send objects and materials you make to other programs like Unreal Engine. It even has video editing, which is getting better and better, but I would personally still not really recommend using Blender as your main video editor. For that, I would still recommend using DaVinci Resolve. Scripting is pretty cool because you can actually write scripts directly inside of Blender and run them in there to like automate your workflow or build add-ons and stuff like that. And interface, I guess Blender has a pretty cool interface. It's like subdivision based, so you can like have as many things on the screen as you want to, or as little as you want to, but I'm gonna get into that in a moment. So if you want to install Blender very easily, click on download here and just download. It should automatically detect your operating system. I'm personally on Linux, so that's correct, but it should tell for you like Windows or Mac, and then you just download it and install it. It's very straightforward, and usually you don't need to worry about what version you install, because up here the download button is usually just the latest stable version, and it usually doesn't happen that there's a version that doesn't work. So yeah, you don't really need to think about what version you install. Just download the one that's here. There's experimental branches, but all that stuff is a bit too. It's not necessary. Okay, I think we can just go straight into Blender now. Looking at all the basics there. switch over to the Blender window here. All right. Okay, cool. So if you open up Blender, you can, this is basically what you see. You have this little pop-up screen and Blender, the user interface in the background. So I'm gonna go over this pop-up screen to begin with because it is actually pretty useful. On the right side here, you have your recent files, which are, yeah, just like, how many is it? Five of the recent files that you've been opening the last times you opened Blender. And then on the left side here, you have some examples for workflows. So if you want to do 2D animation, you can just straight up click into 2D animation and it will set up a whole user interface that's easier for 2D animation. Usually I always click general because you can always just create or like adjust the interface very much on the fly to work how you need it to work. But yeah, this is very cool. Like if you also just want to edit a video very quickly, you can just click video editing and then it will open up a nice video editing interface for you. Yo, Wrench, what's up? Wrench and Winterdex do design the chat. Welcome, guys. Let me check my notes if I should say anything else here. No, that's it about the startup window here. So let's just click on general. And oh, it opened up my startup file. Let me open up the default startup file so you guys can follow along better. Factory settings, yes. All right, so this is the startup, the default startup file. And I want to show you a few things about the user interface first, because it is very customizable and I think it's a cool system, but it can be a bit confusing when you come from other programs. So it's, as I said, it's subdivided based, right? So you have these kind of like tiles that can be subdivided and like turned into more tiles or merged into one bigger tile. So on all the corners you have these, yeah, like arrows, so you can resize them very easily. And you can change any of these tiles basically into anything you need, because every single one of these tiles has this little icon on the top left here. And those basically say what kind of tile it is. This one is the timeline, this one is the properties, this one is the outliner, and this one is the 3D viewport. But you can change it to whatever you want. For example, the 3D viewport, I can also have this to be the compositor, for example. Or I can have this be the video sequencer. Or I can have this be a text editor. So yeah, it's very, very customizable. You also have these tabs up here, which are again like a thing that just helps you to get quicker into specific workflows. For example, I can just click on the sculpting tab here, and Blender will open up automatically like the object that is selected as a sculpting workflow. And then I can immediately start sculpting stuff. I'm gonna get into sculpting a little bit later in the second hour, because it is a big part of it on its own. So I'm gonna go back into layout for now and show you guys a little bit more about the layout. So if I want, for example, if I want to have this properties panel bigger, I can drag on this corner here and just drag it into the window on top. And it always tells you what it's going to do. It says join areas to properties, right? So now this is only properties. And I can also do that here with the 3D viewport, and I can join it over here. And now all of this is a 3D viewport. So yeah, you have to experiment with it a little bit to like get the hang of it, but it is a pretty cool system where you are able to subdivide panels and then like, yeah, get the kind of like windows you need. I can show you the setup that I usually have. I usually have this subdivided and then another subdivision here. And then I have here a shader editor, and here I use the camera view. So this is my standard setup. So I have like a camera view on the top here, I have some shader editors here, and I have like my normal 3D viewport on the right here. It might feel a bit squeezed right now because I'm running a different aspect ratio, but if you have an ultra wide or a 16:9, the setup works much better. So yeah, just a little tip on how I like to work. I think that's the basics about the user interface for now. So let's go next into the preferences, because there are some settings that are worth checking out and that are worth looking at and deciding if you want to change them or not. So right now, let's open up here, edit and preferences. And then we get this preferences window with all the settings we can change. Okay, let me see what's most important here. System, yes, okay. So it opened up the system tab here. And one very important thing is Blender might not recognize if you have a graphics card, it might not automatically set it up for you. So here in Cycles Render Device, you want to make sure that you select a graphics card that you have, right? So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you should use Optix or CUDA. Optix is the RTX graphics engine, so yeah, if you have an RTX card, select Optix, and then you can select which graphics card you want to use. Usually people only have one graphics card, but I have two, which is a bit unusual. But Blender does support multiple graphics cards for rendering, which is really cool. So I'm just going to use one GPU for now. On Mac, it might look a little bit different, but it should be still very simple to like figure out where your GPU is located in this little menu here. Yeah, make sure you select it. And then in backend, this is actually something new. Blender very recently switched from OpenGL to Vulkan, and Vulkan is actually much faster. Vulkan, it's OpenGL and Vulkan basically control the user interface. It kind of like impacts the speed and the performance of a lot of things that are happening in Blender. So if you have the option, I would recommend you to switch to Vulkan. Set this to Vulkan here. And let me see, is there anything else important here? Yes, the undo steps. Very important, because why should you limit yourself to only 32 undos, right? Like if you mess something up very badly, you should be able to go way more back. So let's just scale this up all the way to the right. Now this may be also a good point to like tell you some cool things about how to change values in Blender, because there's a lot of cool ways you can do it. The easiest way is just like click and drag on a value, right? So I can just like scroll it all the way to the right. But you can also, of course, just tap into it and put in a number. So 50, for example. You can tap on these little arrows on the sides to increase one by one. And you can also put in math equations. So if I want, for example, I don't know, like I started at 10 samples, and I know I want 4 times as many. I can just click on it and type in times 4, and will solve that calculation and give you the number, which is very useful in a lot of situations. Like maybe not so much in this situation right here, but yeah, it's really good to know that you can use maths in all of these values here. All right, let's go to the next tab here, which is Key Map, right? Yeah, Key Map I want to do next. And Key Map is kind of like a little bit more about like how you interact with Blender. And a few things that I would recommend you using is pie menus. So here you can see this like tab for pie menu and drag, and extra shading pie menu items. And pie menus are something really cool. I will show you that right now. So for example, you can change the editing type in Blender with tab. So if I press tab once, I basically switch from object mode to edit mode. And you can see that also on the top here. Switching from object mode to edit mode. I can also click on this to change the mode, right? Like we have a few different modes like sculpting, weight painting, texture painting, vertex painting. But pie menus are very useful because you can just hold down tab and then move the mouse and you get this pie menu. And the cool thing about it is it accelerates your workflow a lot, because you can, if you start to build a muscle memory, you can just quickly drag into the direction of the mode that you want, and you're in it. So it gives you way more possibilities, and it builds a muscle memory for you to work faster. And these pie menus will appear in some parts of Blender, not everywhere, but in some parts, and they are usually very, very useful. So yeah, just a little recommendation to get used to pie menus because they are cool. Okay, is there anything else in here? You can also select if you want to have left click select or right click select. It used to be right click select being the standard, but left click select is, the industry standard is left click select. Blender was right click select for a long time, and I did like it, but it wasn't like worth that much to have it. So left click select is how you interact with any other program, so I would just recommend also using left-click select here. I actually changed my mind on this. Like I used to say use right-click select because it has a little bit more functionality, it's a bit more useful. But yeah, if you're switching a lot between programs, left-click select is just a bit easier for your brain. Okay, I think that's all for the key map here. Next, I want to show you navigation, the navigation settings, because they are also pretty important depending on how you want to work. Because right now, one example is, wait, I'm actually gonna make this a bit bigger. So if I use middle mouse button, which is the way to navigate in Blender in the 3D viewport, if I click just middle mouse button, I rotate around the cube, right? But if I want to go somewhere else, like if I want to rotate around the camera, it's not so easy. Like there's not really an easy way to go there, because with shift middle mouse button, you can like pan, right? So you can pan over the camera and then it will kind of rotate around the camera, but not really. So it's a bit weird. It's like, for me, this kind of navigation isn't really very intuitive. But there's a way to change that, which I think is much better. Here in navigation, I like to enable auto depth, zoom to mouse position, and that should be it. Yeah. And now if I use middle mouse button, it basically orbits around where the mouse is. So you're going to see it's very easy to move between objects. So I orbit around this, but then I want to orbit around the camera. I want to orbit around this, I want to orbit around the camera, so yeah, it's much easier to move around the scene in this way, in my opinion. Oh yeah, zooming in and out is with control middle mouse button, so you can zoom in and out like this, and it also does that based on the mouse position, so it zooms in and out to where the mouse is, which is, yeah, very handy if you're building like whole environments. It's much easier to navigate around. Okay, yes, I think that's all for the navigation here. Okay, one more thing about the settings here. The last thing I want to show you about the settings is the add-ons. Because Blender comes pretty bare bones, like the stuff that, well, like Blender has a lot of functionality, but it doesn't really hold your hand much, right? Like you gotta set up almost everything manually or like do a lot of stuff yourself. So yeah, add-ons are an important part of Blender. It kind of like, it's a big part of the community, right? Like people building tools and add-ons to make things easier for everyone. So yeah, you can go here into the add-ons, and there's already a bunch of add-ons installed in Blender, and you can just enable them or disable them if you don't need them. For example, visual limits is very useful. Wiggle 2 is something that I installed myself. And a new thing that's also in Blender now is you can download add-ons directly from the internet, and that's through Get Extensions here. You gotta allow online access, and then you have this like really huge list of add-ons and features, and then you can also just like look for add-ons. For example, I don't know, let's see what kind of like cool camera add-ons we have. And Camera Shakify, for example, which lets you add like a camera shake to a camera. You can just press install, and it will install it for you. So yeah, that's how easy it is to get add-ons nowadays. But there's one add-on I actually want to show you specifically, because it makes using Blender much more fun in the beginning when you don't know so many tools and all the workflows. It just helps you to create cool things in the beginning, which is Blender Kit. I'm gonna open it up here. I also need to switch Discord to my web browser again. Here we go, Discord viewers. Alright, so this is Blender Kit, and it basically gives you access to a huge library of everything, of materials, objects, environment maps, brushes, whole scenes, and also add-ons now. So yeah, Blender Kit, I would really recommend you just download it, like click here and download add-on, download Blender Kit, it will download it. And then with Blender, you can just drag and drop your add-ons into Blender and it will install it. So it's also very easy to install add-ons. Let me switch back to Blender for you Discord people here. There we go. Okay. And I myself already have Blender Kit installed. So I'm just going to look here. Blender Kit Online Asset Library. This I've enabled it again. Just a little detour to Blender Kit because I really like it and I think it makes using Blender very fun. Let me send the link to Blender Kit here on the chat too, because I actually have a 10% discount code for you guys. Okay, so it should be in the chat now. If you want to get it for 10% off, you can do it through this. But Blender Kit is actually also free. Like 50% of all the assets on Blender Kit are free. Like you can see here, free plan. And the other 50% are paid. And then it should say full plan, but for some reason here everything's free. Yeah, so that's that. Let's get back to Blender. There we go. And Blender Kit adds this little bar up on top here. And you can switch from objects to materials to scenes. And then it's very, very easy. You just like look for something you want. So I'm looking for cat. And then, here this lock means it's a full plan. So let's find something that's free, like this cat here. And then you just drag and drop it into your scene. And there it is. That's how easy it is to add models. So yeah, extremely cool. Very cool add-on. Maybe the coolest. Let me see what's next. 3D viewport navigation. Yeah, I kind of like went over that already with basically using middle mouse button to look around everything and move around the 3D viewport. A little cool thing I want to tell you about is how to maximize windows. So if I want this 3D viewport like full screen, I can just press Control Space and I have all this space to look around and look at my scene. And you can do this with everything. Just where your mouse is hovering over, Control Space will expand it to be like full screen, which is very, very cool to quickly focus on what you want to do. Quad view, I also have quad view here in my list. I barely use it, but it is sometimes really useful. If you press not Control Q. What was it, Alt Q? Shift Q? Here we go, Control Alt Q. Control Alt Q gives you this quad view, and it shows you your scene from all perspectives, like one what's it called? I guess just normal perspective, and these are orthographic perspectives from the top, from the back, from the side. Just a little tip. It sometimes helps to build scenes that way. Screen, I got that. Camera controls, yes. So we have these controls on the side here, which are basically the navigation controls we already have. But but you can also use this, like this gizmo, for example, to rotate. You can click on these axes to look from those perspectives, like from the top, from the front. And then you can also use these little gizmos to zoom in and out, to pan. And then this camera button, puts you into the camera view. And something with the camera view I want to also tell you about is extremely useful. We actually have some kind of like first-person shooter navigation system inside of Blender. And for that, we can go here into View, Navigation, and then Walk Navigation. If we click on this, we enter this FPV mode, and we can just use WASD and Shift to like move around. With the mouse, we look around. So this is a very cool and easy way to find your shots. Yeah, very cool. Also something you might have noticed, if you're using tools or features, a lot of the times Blender will show you additional shortcuts on the bottom here, which is extremely useful. So you see basically a list of things that you can do with the feature that you are currently in. So I'm just gonna frame this cat up real nicely here. There we go. Something I want to show you in context with this is, because I don't want to always go here into navigation and click on walk navigation to get this feature. So something cool that Blender has is that you can very easily apply custom shortcuts. Because right now you can see like a lot of these have already shortcuts on the right here. So what you want to do usually is to just open these menus and try to remember the shortcuts, right? Like if, for example, zoom in, it's numpad plus. So instead of clicking it, I'm just going to use numpad plus. So that way I get used to using shortcuts. I get used to like building a muscle memory. But if something doesn't have a shortcut, like walk navigation, you can right-click on it and then assign a shortcut. And now I'm going to press Shift F, and now you can see navigation has the shortcut Shift F. So now I can just quickly always go into this cool, first-person navigation system with Shift F. Super useful. Okay, so next up I want to show you how to manipulate objects in a 3D viewport. So if you select an object with left mouse click, you don't really see any gizmos or anything that lets you move those objects, right? And that's because on the left side we have the tools. So if we don't have the transform tool enabled, then we also don't see those gizmos. So we can choose the move tool, we can choose the rotate tool, the scale tool, or the transform tool, which gives you all of those above into one cool gizmo, which is usually what I use. So yeah, you can just use this to move things around directly in the viewport, rotate them. I'm going to Control Z, undo that. You also have that here. But something that I would recommend is to not use the viewport gizmos, to just stay on the box select, because then you can select stuff very easily. Actually, I like the select lasso much more. If you hold, oh yeah, this is something cool. If there's like a little arrow on the top bottom right of these windows, that means it has additional options. It has additional features. So if you just hold down on those, you can select those. So now I have lasso select, which is really nice. And yeah, what I wanted to talk about is the keyboard shortcuts for manipulating objects, which I always use. I almost never use the gizmos. So if you have something selected, you can press G for grab, and then it will just basically move that object on your viewport plane. But after that, you can also press, for example, X to lock it on the X-axis, Y to lock it on the Y-axis, or Z on the Z-axis. And even deeper than that, you can press Shift-Z to lock it on X and Y axes, or Shift-Y to lock it on the X and Z axis. So basically all the axes except for the one that you're pressing. So this is very useful. I do use this all the time to put things somewhere else on the ground, right? Just like G, Shift, Z, and then I can put it somewhere else. Something else that's super useful to move things around with G, right? And then pressing Control uses the magnet tool. Right now the magnet tool is set to increments, so that means this cat jumps 1 meter. So it's jumping 1 meter to the right, 1 meter to the right, but we can change that up here. This is the snapping feature, the magnet feature, and we can change it from increments to face. And then I also usually select, where is it? Oh yeah, active. And then if we use the control button, it snaps to the surfaces, which is extremely useful to assemble scenes. So yeah, I would recommend you to set that up, to use that way, because yeah, it's very useful. Okay, next up we have rotation. Rotating in the viewport is also very easy. You press R for rotation, and then it's the same game. You can press Z to rotate on the Z axis, yeah, and the other axis also. So yeah, this is usually how I move things around. I rotate with that, and with Control and G I move things on the surface, and then rotate them with RZ where I want them to look at. And then of course we have scale still. Scale is also with S for scaling, and we have the same thing here. We can scale the Z-axis, Shift Z to make it flat. So yeah, very easy. G grab, R rotate, and S scale. Okay, so that's the basic object manipulation in the 3D viewport. Let's get over to adding objects. So, adding objects is also pretty easy. You can just go here to add, and then you have this whole list of primitive objects you can add, like cubes, planes. For example, I want to add a plane now, and it added the plane here in the middle. And that's because our 3D cursor is there. Blender has a 3D cursor, which is, I don't think it's usual. Like, I don't think most 3D programs have that. Oh, we lost our plane. But no problem. We have our outliner for that. So I can click on plane in the outliner, and then we have our plane again. I'm going to scale it up a little bit by 8, for example. Now we have a plane and our cube. So yeah, the 3D cursor. You can move it around if you choose the cursor tool here, and then you can basically place it on any surface, and it should stick to the surfaces. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. It's not super accurate, but it should usually also stick to surfaces. And this 3D cursor has a lot of features in Blender. It's a bit too many features to tell you about all of them right now, but one is that if you add objects, they get added where your 3D cursor is, right? So if I want to add an object here on the corner, I can just place the 3D cursor there and then add another cube right there. So yeah, that's one thing you can do with the 3D cursor. Adding lights. All right. Let's add some lights. So if I click here on add and I use a light here, and for example a spotlight, and I move it around, you can see you have this light source and it's pointing in one direction. You can also use this little point here and choose where it should point at. This is controlling the spread of the light. Yeah, but you will notice that we don't actually see the light. We don't actually see any lighting at all, or textures or shading. And if you want to see that, we have to switch to a different viewport mode. Right now on the top right, you see we are in shading mode solid. That means we don't see any textures. We only see kind of the objects and their outlines. So it's a good mode to quickly assemble your scene. But if you want to actually see how things look like, you should switch over to the material preview mode. And this mode basically uses the Eevee render engine, which is a real-time render engine similar to Unreal Engine. And then you can see we have a little bit more lighting. We have a shadow here of the cat, but we don't actually have the lighting of our lights, weirdly enough. If we want to see our lighting, our lights, we have to click on this drop-down and enable Scene Light and Scene World. And now Eevee, the viewport shading, actually is using our light and our world to affect it. Oh wait, it's not actually doing it. It's not actually changing it. Ah, okay, it's just a very weak light. Let me show you actually the properties menu for this now, because you see the light is very dark. It's not really bright at all. And that's where the properties panel comes in. You can see all kinds of tabs on the left here, and depending on what object is selected, you see different tabs down here. So for the light, for example, we have this little light tab here, and this is where we get all the light information. So we can change the power. Yeah, for example, here I can do a math thing, right? I want this to be 4 times as bright, so I just do times 4. Times 4, there we go, it's 4 times as bright, and now we actually see the shadow of the cat. Very nice. We can also change the color of our light here, and we can change the blending, so kind of the softness of it. Yeah, you have all the options on the right here basically. Maybe we can also show you a little bit how to add colors to objects. For example, this simple cube here. You can see this red material icon here, and here you have already a material, right? We have a material and we can change the colors here. So let's make this blue, for example. We can make it metallic, so it's reflective. We can change the roughness. Yeah, we can change all kinds of things here to make it look more how we want it to look like. There's also a lot of different settings here. For subsurface, specular, emission, so it's lighting itself. Yeah, you can experiment with this, just try out all these settings. Where were we? Lights, yes, properties editor. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of features in this. Something I also want to show you, which is pretty fun to play around with, is the modifiers. So you click on the modifiers here, and then we'll actually select this cube here. And then we can add modifiers. And modifiers are an easy way to add generative procedural stuff to objects, to geometry usually. So for example, I can add an array generator here, and then we have the option to have this object, replicate itself, like duplicate itself, even with some distance between it. There's all kinds of modifiers. I really recommend you to like go through all of these and play around with them, see what all of those do. For example, there should be the wireframe one. Yeah, so wireframe creates like a little wireframe version of the object. Yeah, just go through all of these and see what they do. On the top of here, of the properties panel, we have the render settings, which is pretty important if you want to save an image. Right now, the render engine is Eevee, which is the real-time viewport render, and you can get really nice results with Eevee. Actually, the Oscar-winning the Oscar-winning film Flow was rendered with Eevee, so it's not because it's real-time. It doesn't mean it's gonna look bad. You just gotta, it's a different workflow, but it's really good. Cycles is the classic like ray tracing render engine, which will make it much easier to make something look photorealistic. And you want to make sure that you have your GPU selected if you have a GPU in your computer, so it makes it run much faster. Cycles also gets enabled if you click on top here, the rendered view. Then you will see cycles in action, which basically looks almost the same as Eevee, right? Like this is cycles, this is Eevee. In cycles you see a little bit more realism in the shading here, but this is also a pretty simple scene. Like you can see a little bit of the light bouncing off of this cube onto this cube, and we don't have that much of that in Eevee. It's a bit more sterile, I would say, a bit more computer generated looking. There's also a lot of settings here, but the basic settings that Blender comes with are pretty good. Like you don't really need to play with them too much. It's more advanced stuff, like if something doesn't look right or if you need to have a faster render, then you can change some things here. But if you're doing an animation, I would definitely recommend you to enable motion blur, because then if things move around, they get this nice realistic looking blur effect. It's very good, beneath that we have the output settings, and these are like the resolution and what kind of format you want to save as, start endpoint, a bunch of stuff about getting final images out, like where to save them and how to save them. Then here into view layer, this is a bit more advanced stuff. View layers are basically the stuff that's happening in the background, kind of like the raw data that Blender uses to combine to build the final image. And I don't want to get into much detail in this because it's pretty advanced stuff. You don't really need to worry about it. In scene we have some scene settings like the gravity, the unit system we use. I'm on metric, of course, but imperial might be for you American people, the USA people, but metric is objectively the better system. Some simulation settings here, rigid body world. Not too much to worry about either in here. And then we have the world settings, which are a bit more important because the world settings tell you what is basically the sky, right? Like is there a sky where we are? And so you can easily change here the color of the sky and the intensity, but most of the time you don't want a single colored sky, right? Usually you want a sky, and Blender luckily comes with a built-in procedural sky system, so you can just click here on the color dot here, and here you can select, where is it? Oh, was it actually somewhere else? Background? No, wait, it wasn't here, I think. Texture, oh yeah, sky texture. There we go. And now we have a little bit more realistic looking sky. It's not super detailed, like we don't have any clouds and stuff, but it gives you a generic kind of like sky atmosphere, and you can have a lot of things here. You can change like a sun, so you can make like a nice sunset environment. Yo, Keanu, what's up? Were you busy? Yeah, I'm very busy, man. Thanks for coming to the live stream. Yeah, there's a bunch of things you can change here to make this guy look however you want it to look like. Very cool, all procedural, all real time. How are you? I'm doing good. I'm doing really good in general, man. We can talk a bit more later, but right now I'm gonna go through the basics still. There's not much left actually for the basics, and then I'm gonna be able to answer you guys' questions. Okay, so yeah, we have this guy here, we have the camera, and I think now we should be ready to get into rendering a final image. Let me switch this viewport here to camera view. Nice. Yeah, I think we're ready to render an image. So for that, I'm gonna use our cool walk navigation, place the camera in a cool position, like here, for example. Oh yeah, and the cool trick that I also like to use is double R. Double R is kind of like a ball rotate. So for example, with the kitten, if I press double R, it gives you this like cool ball rotating mode. Sometimes it's very useful to rotate things with this mode. It needs a bit getting used to, but once you kind of like get it, it's very cool. Okay, I'm also gonna disable the overlay here to just have like a pure camera view. Okay, with T you can also open and close these side panels here. Just gonna disable it to have a bit more space. Okay, one thing I want to still show you for the camera, because we haven't gone into the camera settings at all yet. If you go into the camera settings here, you have the focal length, and yes, all kinds of like sensor settings, but something very cool is depth of field. So if you want something to look more realistic, you can add depth of field to your camera and it will immediately look nicer. But the kitten is not in focus right now. You can use this focus distance to just kind of like control where it's focused, but it can be a bit inaccurate, so you can also use this drop thing here and just click on the object you want to focus, and then it should focus on that object. Yeah. Yeah. And now let's just render that image. We can go up here into render and press on render image, and then it will open up a new window, which is actually not how I like it. maybe let's go back into the Blender settings and change this one thing still, because I don't like that Blender opens up a completely new window just to render. Let's open up into preferences again, go into, where was it? Interface, I think. Ah yeah, and then here temporary editors, render in, image editor. And now if we press render image, it will basically turn the biggest window into the render viewer, which is much more useful in my opinion. And it's already rendered. Yeah, so finished. And you might wonder if it already saved the image, if it saved it into the temp folder, which is strange, right? Like what's even the temp folder? So something I would recommend you is to change this standard output path to something that makes more sense. For example, if I press Ctrl S, I can save my project somewhere. So I'm just going to save it here as cat test1, save blend file. And then something really cool you can do here is using the double backslash, put in render, and then /. So this will basically create a folder that is called render in the folder where your project file is. These double slashes basically mean relative to where your project file is saved. So if I press this again, render the image, it will actually not save it automatically, which might be confusing to people in the beginning, because if I open up my downloads folder now, it did not create any render folders, because if you render singular images, it will not automatically save the image. You actually have to save it yourself, and you can see that up here, image, save. And then you can select where you want to save it. which is, yeah, I guess just downloads cat test 1. And then you have some settings here still, the format, and if you need alpha, transparency or whatever, save this image, and then we have it saved. And these output settings actually only are really necessary if you render an animation. So if I press render animation now, it will render basically one frame after the other, and then it will put them in that folder, which it should create now. Let's see. Did it create it? Render? No, it did not create it. Okay, that might be because I used the wrong slashes. Let me try again. So not these slashes, but these slashes and this one. I always get confused in what direction the slashes are supposed to go. Okay, let's try that again. And then render animation. And now it should create that folder in here once the image is done rendering. Did it do it? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Now we have this render folder in our downloads folder, and Blender will put all the rendered images in there. Okay, cool. So that's how you get your image out of Blender on your computer. Yeah, that's basically all the very basics of Blender. Now you guys can ask me what you want to learn more about, and we will get into that for the next hour. Something like RV and GXTES. If you have anything that you want to learn about, let me know right now. Yeah.
Could you like briefly go through how to render again? Because I got the output. I just want to know how to like render an image in an image sequence.
In an image sequence, okay.
Yeah, I was taking notes. I got distracted.
Okay. So if you want to render an animation, you can just click here on render and click on render animation, and then it will basically go through the timeline and render one frame after the other.
Animation versus image. That's really simple. Thank you.
No problem. Something like a tip for rendering animation that I like to give is to disable override and enable placeholders. I mean, placeholders is not really necessary, but it helps when you have like multiple computers rendering the same thing. But if you disable override, basically you can stop and continue your render without problems. So you will see, since I already have 2 images rendered, and if I press render animation now with override disabled, it will continue from the 3rd frame. So yeah, this is a very easy, like automatic way for Blender to, for you to be able to stop the render and continue another time. Yeah. Let me drink a sip of water here. You guys can think about what you want to know about next, and then I will get into that. Also, if there was anything unclear from what I said so far, you can just ask me again.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Actually, is there a way to like parent the camera so it's like on a specific object? Is it like relatively simple to do that?
Yeah, parenting.
Like it focuses.
Focusing. Okay. Yeah, those are 2 different things that are both very useful. Parenting is something very important for 3D animation. I want to just show you that feature really quickly. Parenting basically connects objects together. You have a child and you have a parent. So if for example, if I want this cat to be always on top of this cube, right? Like if I move this cube, I want the cat to stay on the cube. I can select the cat and then with shift click the cube. So basically the last thing you select is the parent, and all the things you selected before that are children. To maybe like show that better, I select multiple things and then the cube as last. And you can also see the color difference, like the children are selected in kind of like an orange, and the parent is more of a yellow, like a bit brighter color. So with those two selected and the cube last, I'm going to press Control P to bring up the set parent thing. And then we have a few options. The standard is object. We have keep transform. We have without inverse. And without inverse and keep transform are very important differences, because if I press keep transform, then everything stays as this. And if I move the cube now, they are following the cube. So this is very useful, to have the cat always on top of the cube. And without inverse is, okay, maybe actually without inverse is a bit too specific. So I will not talk about that right now. But you can also see these lines here. So if I have the cat and the cube, you see these lines to the mother, to the parent, and that means, they are parented to that object where the lines are going to. You can also delete parents again if you select the object you want to be free and you press Alt-P, and then you have this clear parent feature, and then the cat doesn't follow the cube anymore. So parenting is a feature that's extremely useful for making all kinds of like complex animations and making just your setup easier. So it's a very cool thing. Something also that's really useful is, for example, I can parent this light to the cat. If I select the cat now, keep transforms, and now if I move the cat, the light will always be with the cat. So I can kind of like light a character and then parent all the lights to that character, and no matter where that character is in the scene, you will always have the same light. So that's something very useful. And to get to your other questions, Arvi, or I think it was your main question, how to parent the focus of the camera, is instead of using this focus distance, you can just use this focus on object. So also just using this drop down on the cat, and now I'm gonna go into render mode here. And now you see if I move the cat around, the focus will always stay on the cat. The cat will always be focused, and the background will defocus depending on how far or close the cat is. Yeah. Did that answer your questions, Avi?
Yes, thank you.
Nice. Cool. Something that I would recommend, like a setup for the camera and its focus that I usually do, is I create an empty. Empties are basically just controller objects in your 3D scene. They're not being rendered. They're just there to control things. So for example, I'm going to press Shift A to get the add menu, and I'm going to put an empty here. And then I'm going to use F2 to rename it to focus, for example. And then I'm going to use this object here as my focus object. And now I basically have one object that I can move around the scene, and I always know what is in focus by knowing where this empty is, right? Like I can have the focus on the cube in the background, on the cat. So this is a system that I use all the time. Okay, anyone else still has a question? Let's see if there's something in the chat here. Oh, Keanu has a question. Any new features on Blender 4.5? I'm not super sure which features came with 4.5. I'm pretty sure Vulkan came with 4.5, which is the faster viewport. System. Yeah, here Vulkan. There were also a bunch of geometry nodes, new geometry nodes with 4.5, but I'm not sure what else was big. Yeah, I'm not sure what the rest is, but you can always read that up on the, or like a really cool way to find that out is on the YouTube channel from the Blender Foundation. They always have like cool update videos where they go through the basics of what's new with every big update. Keanu has another question. How do you array objects on a circular path? Okay, that's an interesting question. It's a bit more complicated, and that's actually kind of like where the community aspect comes in, because Blender itself has a way to create Let me just create a new scene here. Let me save that to a more simpler scene. Let me open up the default again. Okay, so if I want this cube to be like arrayed on a circle, for example, the old way, or like the way to do it, the manual way, is to go to curve and add a circle curve. And then we have this circle here. And then with the cube, we want to add two modifiers. One is the array modifier. And then we can select fit curve. And then basically we select the curve. And Blender will make sure that that object is as long as the curve. But the problem is that even true? I'm not sure if this is even true. Okay, let's just play with it. Okay, but yeah, you need an array, and then you need a deform curve. And then I select the curve, and then you basically have the cubes following the curve. But you see that it has like some weird limitations, like the cube gets deformed and stuff. So nowadays there is a better way, which is through an add-on, which is called BaggerPie. It gives you like a lot of cool quick array features. Let's see if we can get it here. Allow online access. Bagger. Yeah, there we go. BaggerPie. We have it installed. And then we should have it. I'm going to delete all these things. We should have it with J. Yes, here we go. So with the object selected, I press J. And this is the BaggerPie menu. And we can just create a circle array. And then in the modifiers, we have all these settings here. Ring offset. Let's see this. The radius, distance. There we go. Yeah, and this is. I mean, yeah, you saw this was way easier to set up, and you also get way more control. So yeah, that's the big power of Blender with the community. You just get all of these great features and options to install add-ons and like get new features through the community. Yeah, that's how you do this easy circular path. There's also a lot of other cool features in this add-on, so yeah, it's definitely worth checking all of it out. Oh, Ivy, let's try that. We can add an Ivy to all of this stuff. Very cool. Whoops. Very nice. Something that I might also want to talk about a little bit is organizing with the outliner, right? Like the outliner to the right here. It is worth to have a little bit of organization. Like if you look at my startup file here, don't save. You can see I already have like some standard collections. You can add collections here with right-click, new collection. And I have one for my set, basically, one for my lights, one for my camera, and one for references. So I put like, just like reference images or reference objects in there, and they're not getting rendered. Like you can see here, this disable and render is off or on. It means that it's not going to get rendered. It's just there for the viewport to look at. And also something really useful is this old trash collection. So instead of deleting things, I usually just move them with M to the old trash collection, and then they're like deleted, but I can still enable that collection and get them back if I need them. Yeah, so get them back, move them into my set again, disable the trash. Keanu says, thanks Carl, I never knew the add-on existed. No problem, man. Yeah, BaggerPie is a really, really useful add-on. It makes a lot of things easier. Okay, anyone else has a question? If you don't have any like specific questions, I could just show you something fun like the sculpting tab, like how to quickly sculpt things. think I'm going to do that. Yeah, okay, I'll just show you the sculpting a little bit. So for that I'm going to go to my splash screen here and use the sculpting startup file, don't save, and then you immediately just get like a sphere with your sculpting brushes here. The standard sculpting brush is Draw, which lets you just kind of like, almost like draw in 3D space here on the sphere and make things go bigger. And if you hold down Shift, you can smoothen things out, so it's very easy to kind of like make a little bump here and then make it a bit smoother. If you hold down Control, you get the reverse, so instead of having something grow out, you make it grow in. So these are the basics for sculpting something, but something that I would recommend you if you truly just want to like sculpt a cool object, you should enable Dyn Topo up here, dynamic topology, because something you might notice here is that this doesn't look so smooth, and that's because Blender doesn't add any new geometry automatically. But if you enable Dyn Topo, it will add new geometry. So you will never run out of detail on your sculpt. You can always just keep going into detail and making things more and more detailed. It will never begin to look bad, which is pretty cool. Another brush that I like to use a lot is the grab, or like the snake hook here, elastic snake hook. You can just like grab things and make them come out a little bit. It's a very fun tool. Also what's very useful, with F you can change the scale of your brush, so you can make it much bigger, then like have it, you can shape it very quickly. With Shift F you can change the strength, so now I have a very weak brush, now I have a very strong brush. Yeah, there's a lot of different brushes here that do all kinds of different things. It's definitely worth just click through them and see what they're doing. This one inflates. This one crease sharp. Oh, this one like makes like a sharp crease. Yeah, cool stuff. Great stuff. Layer. Clay thumb. Interesting. Uh-huh. Oh yeah, it's like running with the thumb through through the object. Interesting. Oh yeah, you can kind of like, oh, I see now, yeah. It really feels like pushing with your thumb through some soft clay. Clay strips. Oh, this like gives you kind of like a harsher like bridge thing. Yeah, cool. This is just an abstract piece. It doesn't really have any goal what it wants to be. Okay, anyone else has questions about anything or about the sculpting?
I'm actually curious what the topology is like after a sculpt, because it seems pretty complex. Like, is there a way to like simplify it too? Like, if you're making an asset for a game, or is it like not advised to sculpt assets for games or something?
Yeah, good question. The sculpt, it's true that when you sculpt something in this mod, especially if you have Dyn Topo on, then the geometry is pretty messy, like it isn't really optimized for anything. So if you just want to create like nice renders, like still renders of cool sculpts, like this is not a problem. You can just go with this. But if you need it for a game or if you want to animate it in a more efficient way, then you usually, I mean, the old school way is to create like a nice sculpt and then create a new model manually after that, right? Like with extruding vertices and like building a mesh on top of that original sculpt. There are a few automatic ways. So for example, if I go back into, if I create here my layout, then in the mesh settings here, or the data tab, we have this remesh option. Oh, I got the hiccups. And the remesh gives you some options to like get a cleaner topology. It's not like, it's still not ideal, but it's a bit cleaner. So let's just try the standard settings first. Let's see what happens. Voxel remesh. And voxel remesh seems to basically give the object the same density of vertices, but it doesn't look very clean either. I actually prefer how it was before. So voxel remesh is not the best for this. Let's try quad remesh. I'm just gonna see if the standard settings are working here. Quad flow. Okay, and this seems to have worked a bit better. Like this seems more like a traditional, mesh topology. If we go back and forth. Okay, can't. But yeah, quad flow seems to work a little bit better. We can also change the shading type with right click here to smooth. That way it looks also a bit nicer, not so flat. Let's try this quad remesh again. Actually, if you want a sculpt to look nicer, an easy way to do that is with a modifier. And this is actually a very powerful modifier that gets used for all kinds of things all of the time, which is the subdivide. Where is it? Subdivide surface. If we add this, then you see the object gets smoother immediately. It immediately looks nicer. If you disable it, enable it, you can immediately see that it just looks nicer. You can increase the level of subdivision. But let's actually see if the quad remesh works well together with that. So I'm going to remesh it here. Okay, now we got this version. I'm going to make it smooth and then enable the quad remesh. Oh, now it looks really nice. Yeah, now it looks very nice. So I guess this is a good workflow to just like sculpt however you like to and then do a quad remesh, and then you can use the subdivision surface to make it look very nice and smooth. Yeah, did that answer your question, Avi?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. I mean, these automatic ways are not ideal still, right? Like if you really want to get something very efficient into a game engine, you would still need to kind of like rebuild the mesh from scratch through the editing tools, which I can also show a little bit. Let's go here, general. Because I haven't gone into that at all yet, because it is kind of also like a big topic, and it's not so satisfying in my opinion. But if you go into the edit mode on an object, you basically get the traditional editing features. So you can like move individual vertices, and you can extrude surfaces with E. So like extrude this, extrude that. This way you can like build meshes in a more traditional way. Also, I is a very useful shortcut for insert face. Yeah, so I can insert and then extrude downwards. And then I have like kind of like a opening here. Another very useful feature is bevel. So if I select a corner here with Alt, you can select a whole ring also. It's a very useful feature. So Alt click on an edge and we'll select the whole ring. And then with Control B, I can do a little bevel. So to like, give the edge some more detail. B again. There we go. Yeah. Keanu says, any fun project you've been working on lately? Oh yeah, I mean right now I'm working on a very very fun project with Mike Diva together. We're working on Adult Swim show called Off the Air. Yeah, it's very fun. I get to animate like a cute little hummingbird flying around in a Dreamcast world. Yeah, you will see it soon. It should come out end of this, no, more like middle of next month maybe. But yeah, it's very fun. It's a very fun project. Avi, do you have any more questions? I still have a bit of time.
Oh jeez. I'm sure I can think of something, just give me a bit.
Alright, no problem. Maybe in the meantime I'll show you guys the physics basics, because that is also pretty fun. So let me add a cube here and just like maybe I wanted to just like fall down here and interact with these meshes. So easy way to add physics is actually here through the object and then rigid bodies, and then I'm going to use add active. Active means that it can simulate, right? So I have added active simulation to this cube now, and if I press play, it falls down, which is not very interesting right now. So basically the only simulation that's happening is gravity. You can actually look at the physics settings here in this physics tab. So I want to add these two objects also as physics objects. So I'm going to click here on rigid body. Active is fine. But if I don't want it to move itself, I should activate animated. And now you see that, most this one, animated, that the cube is interacting with these two objects. Something important to keep in mind also is that this object here, you see that the cube doesn't really collide with it. And that is because the standard collision shape of object is convex hull. And convex hull you can kind of like imagine as an object that's being built around the shape of the main object. So the collision is actually not happening with the real geometry, but it's kind of like building a shape, like the smallest possible shape. Oops, that drawing wasn't so well. The smallest possible shape around your original object. So it's creating something like this, and then it's like making something here. Yeah, so this is more like the real shape it's creating, which is a convex hull, that's how it's called. So if you want to use your real geometry, you have to switch this to mesh. And then you see the cube is connecting, interacting with that mesh correctly how it should be. It should even be like the inside, right? Like if it's, yeah, it's even connecting with that. The mesh shape is a little bit more complicated to calculate though, so it could slow down your computer if you use it too much. But for me right now it's working pretty well. Keanu asks, when will be the next student submission live stream? Yeah, I think pretty soon, because I've seen there's one submission here on this Discord server. Yeah, there's one here from Prime. So I'm gonna do it pretty soon. I'm not sure when exactly. I mean, usually always on Sunday evenings I'm doing those. But there hasn't been many submissions recently, so that's why I haven't done many. But if you have something to submit, just do it. Do it, Keanu. I'm ready to look at your stuff. Okay, so we got some basic physics here, some basic rigid bodies. Another really fun physics simulation is also cloth. Blender has some pretty nice cloth. So, for example, I'm just gonna let these things happen. Actually, I'm gonna remove this cube. I'm gonna add a new plane, and I want this plane to be some cloth that's like falling over this object here. So I'm gonna scale this up like this. Something important for simulation is that objects have their scale applied. For example, right now, since I scaled it up, the scale here is 2.9, which will mess up the simulation a little bit if we leave it like this. So to apply the scale, press Ctrl A, and then apply scale. And then you can see scale is now all 1, which will make the simulation run much more stable. And then physics, I'm gonna add cloth, and if I play now, you see it's falling, but again, just gravity. That's because, for some reason, I think it's a bit counterintuitive, but rigid body doesn't interact with cloth physics. If you want the cloth to interact with this actually has to have the collision system also enabled. So if I play now, it's working, but it's more like a plane. It is not really behaving like cloth. And that is because it doesn't have, if we go into edit mode, it doesn't have any geometry. It only has those 4 vertices on the corners. So the cloth doesn't have anything to bend, basically. So what you want to do, you can do this in two ways. Either in edit mode, I can do right click and click on subdivide, and then increase the number of cuts here to something that makes sense, maybe like 20, and then go out of edit mode. And if I play now, you can see we have something that looks more like cloth. Oh, actually, let's make it smooth. Yeah, there we go. And this is one way to do it, but there is actually a more procedural way to do this. So I'm gonna undo all of this and go into modifiers, and I'm gonna add again the subdivision surface. I'm gonna make sure that it needs to be on in top of the cloth, like before the cloth happens, it needs to be subdivided. And I'm gonna use the simple, so it's not smoothing it, but just adding more geometry. And now I can basically select here with these 2 values how much detail I want in my simulation. Let's see, I put in 10, it needs a moment to calculate that apparently. Maybe it's too high of a number, let's see. Still calculating. Well, I didn't think that 10 would be too much already. Oh, it's done. Okay. And if I press play now, oh, it's super slow. Okay, yeah, maybe 10 is maybe 10 is a bit too much. Let's just start lower. Let's maybe start with 4. Oh yeah, it's super slow. Hello? Usually pressing escape stops the playback. It resets the time to where it was. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna press... Oh, damn. I think I moved it and now it's calculating all of it again. Okay, yeah, 10 seemed to be way too high. It takes forever if I change anything now. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's just put this to 4, and play it. Okay, there we go. Okay, we can do a bit higher. 6 and 6, let's see. There we go. That's pretty detailed. Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm also noticing... Oh, I'm moving skip frames. Oh yeah, that's because here in playback I have sync to audio, so it skips frames in for it to stay in real-time playback. Not real-time, but like synced to the real time. So if you want to see every frame, you have to select play every frame, and then the simulation will work properly. Something that you might notice here is also that it's intersecting with itself, which should not happen. You can enable this feature for it to like interact with itself in here somewhere. Let's see, collision, self-collision, yes. And if we play now, it should not intersect with itself. Yeah, there we go. A little hack to make cloth simulations look nicer, because you have like these jagged edges sometimes here. Trick for that is to lower the resolution, the first subdivision, a little bit, and then add another subdivision afterwards at the end of the simulation. That way you get some nice simulation, and then it gets smoothened out to look, just to look nicer. Let's see, can we get something nice this way? Yeah, that looks pretty nice now. Yeah, that looks pretty. Very pretty. And if you want to save the simulation, you can scroll down here to cage, and then you basically have to bake the cage, and it will calculate every frame, and then it will save it as a file on your computer, so you don't lose that simulation basically. There we go. Now we can also scroll through it, and it will also play it all back in real time, super fast. Yeah, nice. Looks very pretty. Oh, I just had an idea that could look fun, because we have this hole up there. What if we have a ball fall into it with the cloth? That could look interesting. Gonna switch to, with Z, I'm gonna switch to wireframe, so I can see where the hole is. Yeah, so right there. And I'm gonna create a rigid body, so it should fall down. Yes, and also add collision, so it's connecting with the cloth. Oh, that didn't work for some reason. Okay, it does work, but it's maybe it just moves too fast. Maybe it just doesn't have enough energy. Okay, yeah. Guess that doesn't work properly. Oh, it's also not interacting with this rigid body. Animates it. Huh? Now it's interacting. Okay, now it is working, okay. Yeah. Little experiment here. You can also play with it in real time, which is kind of fun. But it seems like maybe the cloth is too heavy for it to like interact. Let's try to make it lighter here with vertex mass. Let's just put it to 0.1, so it's much lighter. No, that doesn't really work. Okay, maybe it's just not supposed to work. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask one more time for questions. If no one has questions, then I I will bring the beginner course to a close very soon.
Well, I was just looking at like the fluid, like the fluid section there. Like, can
yeah.
you like smoke with that?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, let me show you how to quickly do some smoke simulation. Let me open up a new project here. Okay. One very easy way to do smoke is to use a feature in Blender. Let me make this a bit smaller. I'll move it over here. In the same window where we added the rigid body, here in Object, there's also a quick way to add fire here, quick effects, and then we can do quick smoke or quick explode or even quick liquid. So let's just try quick explode. Oh, that's actually not what I expected. This seems to be like this is like a procedural particle system explosion. Okay, so this is not actually what I wanted. Let's go here again to quick effects, quick smoke. And this basically sets up a little simulation system where I need to switch back to play every frame. And now it's emitting this cool little smoke here. And you can play around with the settings a lot. For example, here you can add fire, so it can be a fire instead of smoke, or it can be both fire and smoke. And right now it looks very low quality, and that's because of the resolution of the domain object here. So in smoke simulation you always have a domain object, which basically tells the computer in what area of the scene the smoke can happen, because otherwise it would take a lot of processing power if it looks in the whole scene for smoke. If you contain it, it's a bit faster. So that's what this domain object is for, and you get a lot of settings in the domain object. For example, I want to have an adaptive domain, which helps for the domain to like look where there's actually some smoke and scale it where it's necessary. It's somehow slower in this case though. Yeah, in this case it's slower, so maybe it's not always worth it. But to increase the resolution, you have this this one here. Resolution, what does it say? Density? Resolution divisions. So let's just do a ×2. See how that looks. Okay, that already looks way more detailed. Yeah, that's much more detailed. If we want to step this up even further, ×2, it could start to be very slow. Yeah, this is very slow now. Yeah, so fire and smoke simulations in Blender are very possible, but since they are not so fast, it is a little bit difficult to get them looking correct. So if you really want to like focus on doing fire and smoke simulations, I would recommend using a different tool like Embergen. Embergen is very fun for doing smoke simulations, but you can still do it in Blender. It's just not so fun.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. I think there was some way to make it look a bit more detailed without adding more resolution. Ooh, this actually adds a lot. This noise setting here adds a lot of detail to the fire. What if we crank this down again to make it run faster? And dissolve also helps to like not have so much smoke. Yeah, it's kind of like a nice flame. Still pretty low resolution, but the movement is nice. Yeah, I guess that's a little quick way to get with fire simulation started. Anyone else has a question? Okay. Yeah, I think okay. I feel like the basics are covered then. For RV and GXTES. GXTES. What was your like real name again? Like, should I call you by GXTES or by your real name?
My name is Nick, but it's
Nick,
also
yeah.
it's Gates. Sorry, the X makes it a little
Oh,
confusing.
okay, I see. Okay, Gates and RV. All right, I'll try to remember that. But yeah, you both are very welcome to do some experiments and like try out some things. Maybe like start on animation that you wanted to do, and yeah, just send it into the submissions, and then I will be able to like continue your learning process and like show you exactly the things that you need to know and learn to be able to improve on what you want to do. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah. I'm here if you need any help with anything. Just reach out and do some cool submissions. Right. I'll end the beginner course then for today. Thank you everyone for joining. I haven't done a beginner course for a while now. But yeah, it was nice to do it again, and I hope we're gonna see each other soon again. Have a great day, and I'll see